Hi guys, it's me Reagan, your Feline Pathway Coordinator at the Humane Society of the Treasure Coast in Palm City, Florida. Today we're going to be talking about two common viruses that you see in cats and that you'll see in adoptable cats at HSTC, and I want to explain a little bit more about them to you. These two viruses that we're going to be discussing are FIV, which is feline immunodeficiency virus, and FeLV, which is feline leukemia virus. These two viruses are really different, but they're often grouped together in veterinary medicine because they're the same type of virus. So they're both retroviruses, all right? So a retrovirus is any group of RNA viruses that insert a DNA copy of their genome into the host cell in order to replicate. So that's just a big sciencey explanation to say that the virus takes its own genome from DNA and inserts it into the DNA of its host animal, and that's how it lives and replicates and continues to survive in the body. So because both of these viruses are retroviruses, they both replicate in that way, they're grouped together, but today we're going to talk about some of the differences and how it's important to distinguish one from the other. And we're also going to talk about why cats that are FIV or FeLV positive are still awesome pets and they still deserve homes as much as any other cat. We don't want them to be overlooked just because they're carrying different viruses. So first we're going to be talking about FIV, and remember that is the feline immunodeficiency virus. This is related a lot of times to HIV in people. They're similar to one another. So FIV is a species-specific virus, so it's feline-specific, only cats can get it. A cat cannot transmit it to you or to a dog or to a hamster or to any animal besides another feline. So that's really important. They're not going to be able to transmit it to anybody else. So if it's the only cat in the household, there's zero risk of it being transmitted to another animal. If there are other cats in the household, that's okay. We're going to talk about how there's a lot of new science on FIV. It used to be thought that FIV positive and FIV negative cats couldn't live together, but we found that that's not the case. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. FIV is generally transmitted through a deep bite wound, so deep enough that the saliva from the FIV positive cat enters the bloodstream of an FIV negative cat. It can also be transmitted through sexual intercourse. So the risk of this virus transmitting from one cat to another is really, really low as long as the cats get along and don't fight, and as long as they're spayed or neutered. So it's a disease, it's a virus that's commonly spread in outdoor male cats specifically. If they're not fixed through a TNVR program, then they're going to be really territorial. They're going to be fighting over mates and food and territory, all kinds of things that they're going to be scrapping about. So they're getting into a lot more fights, they're coming into contact with a lot more cats, and of course they're continuing to mate because they're not neutered. So this is something that's somewhat common in unaltered outdoor male cats. And it's more common in male cats than in female cats because male cats tend to be much more territorial and they fight a lot more often. So if you are adopting a house cat and it is already spayed or neutered, it's FIV positive for whatever reason, and you're bringing it into your home with your other cats who are pretty relaxed, they all get along, and you do proper slow introductions, the chance of your cats getting into a fight that's so severe that this new FIV positive cat bites them deep enough to get its saliva into the bloodstream is really, really low. And we have also found, just anecdotally, it's not scientific evidence by any means, but a lot of our FIV cats are really, really, really sweet cats. So a lot of them get along with us as staff really well, but also with other cats really well. At the shelter, we do house FIV cats separately from FIV negative cats just as a precaution because it's a shelter, so it's scary and it's stressful and the cats don't know each other. So it's just not worth the risk for us to house FIV positive and FIV negative cats together. But in a home with proper introductions and cat personalities that work together, there's tremendously low risk of that virus being transmitted between them. The other thing that we want to talk about with FIV is FIV is a virus, so cats can carry this virus. There's no cure for it. We can't make them stop carrying the virus once they have it. But being a carrier of the virus does not mean that they have disease associated with FIV. So when a cat is carrying FIV, that lowers their immune system, okay? So if they get sick, it might take them a little bit longer to get better. If they have a wound, it might take them a little bit longer to heal because their body's immune system is lower than a normal cat's immune system, right? So they have challenges for sure in that way, but that doesn't mean that they have any kind of disease day to day. They're healthy, normal cats. They do everything that a normal cat does. They're not requiring any extra special care. It's just that when they need medical care, sometimes they need a little bit more or it takes a little bit longer to work. There aren't any specific symptoms of FIV, right? So you're not going to be able to look at a cat and say, yes, that cat definitely has FIV, or look at another and say, yes, that cat definitely does not have FIV. The only way to find out if your cat is carrying FIV is by doing a blood test. So you'll want, if you have any kind of suspicion, if you think your cat maybe came into contact with an FIV-positive cat, or if it's been outside and missing for several months, something like that, you want to reach out to your vet, get a SNAP test done. So the test that's done to test for FIV, the normal in-house test is an ELISA SNAP test. So they'll take a small sample of blood from your cat, put it in a test, and it takes about 10 minutes for that test to come up either positive or negative. With most testing, there can be false negatives. It's a lot more rare to have false positives, but that can happen too. So there are additional tests, blood tests that can be done to confirm that diagnosis of being an FIV carrier. So, as far as FIV, cats can be carriers without ever having any issues. It's pretty rare for FIV to be transmitted between cats in cats that get along and that are spayed and neutered and that live indoors. And there's no specific signs or symptoms of FIV that are going to be a diagnostic sign or a symptom. The only way to find out if your cat or any cat is FIV positive is to get a blood test done with your veterinarian. We really want to stress that these cats can live in homes with other cats and that there's absolutely no risk at all of this virus being transmitted to humans or pets that are not feline. And in general, these are just really great cats. It's a little bit of a virus that they carry that's no big deal. They most of the time live a completely normal, long lifespan, and you just want to watch out if they get injured or if they get sick. You'll want to get medical care ASAP because it sometimes takes their bodies a little bit longer to heal since they do have a slightly compromised immune system. The second virus that we're talking about today is FeLV, and that is feline leukemia virus. This is similar to FIV in that it is also a retrovirus, right, like we already talked about, and in that cats can be virus carriers without having disease associated with FeLV. So that's two important distinctions. Just because a cat is carrying FeLV doesn't mean it's sick because of FeLV. So FeLV is a little bit more serious than FIV. It can have bigger implications on the health of the cat. It is a virus that is also species specific, so only other cats can get it. Humans cannot get FeLV, dogs cannot get FeLV, rabbits, hamsters, guinea pigs. Nobody besides other felines can get FeLV and associated diseases, okay? So with FeLV, where FIV is mostly only transmitted through a deep bite wound, FeLV can be transmitted a lot more easily. It can be shed in a lot of bodily fluids, including saliva, nasal discharge, urine, feces, blood, so it really sheds a lot more than FIV does. Cats can transmit it to one another through mutual grooming. So when one cat really likes another cat and they lay together and they lick each other, that's super sweet. But if one cat has FeLV, you can easily pass it to another cat through mutual grooming. Shared water bowls, shared litter boxes, and fighting and things like that. So FeLV is pretty contagious as far as feline viruses go. For that reason, we recommend that FeLV cats either be the only cat in the household or that they live with other FeLV positive cats, just because it is a more serious virus, it can have more serious implications, and it can be transmitted really easily. So there are a lot of new data about FeLV out now, which is very exciting because for a long time this virus was discovered in the 1960s and we've been kind of stagnant as far as new data. Basically, what used to be thought was that if a cat has FeLV, it is sick and it doesn't have much of a chance, right? So that's not actually the case necessarily. It used to be a virus that cats were euthanized for if they came into a shelter and sometimes even in private practice. But now we're finding new data. We're finding that there are homes for these cats and that it is safe to adopt them out and that they deserve loving homes as much as any other kiddo. So, with the new data on FeLV, there are 3 types of infections that cats can have when they're FeLV carriers. So the first is abortive, which is the most exciting. This is kind of a new category. That is when a cat gets the FeLV virus, they carry it, but then their body fights the virus off and they end up testing negative moving forward. So they have a confirmed positive test at one point in time. They're continued to be tested, and then they end up being completely negative, not ever having any signs or symptoms. That's an abortive infection where they had the virus and they end up, their body manages it on their own, which is great. So those cats end up living totally normal lives. They don't have symptoms or diseases associated with it, and everything's great. The next kind of FeLV infection is regressive. So this is when if a cat is tested multiple times, sometimes it's testing positive, and depending on the test, it's testing positive on some tests and not others, and sometimes it's testing negative, and it's kind of up and down. It's a bit of a roller coaster. These cats' bodies are trying to fight off the virus, and they're trying to manage it, but without complete success, like in an abortive situation. So a lot of these cats end up having completely normal lifespans as well. Some of them have shorter lifespans, and some of them will end up getting disease associated with FeLV. So it's something to watch really closely. And the third kind of FeLV infection is a progressive infection, and that's when a cat tests positive for FeLV pretty much across the board. There are several blood tests that can be run to confirm a diagnosis. And they're continually testing positive, they don't test negative, and they do generally get secondary disease processes associated with that. They usually have a reduced lifespan, but they still do deserve loving homes. It's just got to be a home that understands that if they do have a cat that has a progressive FeLV infection, that they're going to have to really boost up veterinary care and make sure they're watching symptoms very closely, and potentially, depending on when this home adopts the cat, that it could end up quicker than a normal cat becoming a hospice or end-of-life pet. So there are 3 different kinds, and that's really promising to show that cats can potentially start regulating themselves with this virus, which is great. So to talk a little bit more about how FeLV affects a cat. So FeLV does weaken the cat's immune system somewhat significantly and can predispose them to a variety of infections or diseases, including things like anemia, kidney disease, certain types of cancers. They'll also commonly have mouth issues, the same as FIV cats, so stomatitis, gingivitis, painful gums. Those types of symptoms are fairly common in FeLV cats. Kittens and cats less than a year old are more susceptible to FeLV than adult cats with strong immune systems, but that does not mean that adults can't pick it up. And there is a vaccine for FeLV, so that's something that if you're interested in learning more about that, you would want to talk with your vet and see if your cat is a good candidate to receive an FeLV vaccine. This is something that people who do try and have FeLV positive and FeLV negative cats living in a home together, that's something that's really important for them. Or if you have an indoor-outdoor cat, because you never know if outdoor cats are carrying FeLV with how easily it's spread. All it takes is for your cat to share bowls with a neighborhood cat that is potentially FeLV positive, and they could pick it up. So that's something you'll want to discuss with your vet. It is an option to help try and prevent your cat from getting FeLV. Another way that FeLV is passed is in utero or through mama's milk. So if an FeLV positive cat has kittens, then there's a pretty high likelihood that her kittens will be FeLV positive as well, because they're receiving that virus when they're first born and in utero. So before their immune systems are even formed, it's getting that virus and it will be compromised. So some of the common signs of a cat that's having disease associated with an FeLV virus are loss of appetite and weight loss, pale or inflamed gums, poor coat condition, if they chronically get abscesses or chronic upper respiratory infections sometimes can be a sign, enlarged lymph nodes. If you're seeing any kind of chronic health condition and you don't know of anything else underlying going on, you should definitely check with your vet and see if your cat has been tested for FIV and FeLV and get that test done just to see if that's potentially the underlying cause of all of these issues. So we do want to stress that even though FeLV is a little bit more serious than FIV, it does weaken the immune system more, and these are cats that we do recommend either being the only cat in the household or living only with other FeLV positive cats just due to ease of transmission of the disease in friendly cats. These cats still potentially can live normal long lives, but it is just something that you need to go into it understanding that there are different stages of the virus, and while some cats manage it well, some cats don't. So anytime you're adopting an FeLV cat, it's just really important to understand that you might have less time with them, but that's not any different than if you adopt a senior pet or a pet with other health conditions. They're still awesome cats. We found, again, anecdotally, but that they're usually really sweet and loving cats. And it's really important with our mission to become a no-kill community to make sure that special kiddos like this are finding the homes that they deserve too. So we can't do it without you guys. If we don't have FeLV adopters, obviously we don't want them to just sit in a shelter for the rest of their lives, but we have had success. I believe HSTC now has had three or four FeLV positive cats adopted out, which is just amazing because as recently as a few years ago, these cats weren't being adopted out really a lot throughout the country, and not at HSTC either. So this is an amazing time that we're in to be able to be getting these new studies and getting this new data that says continue testing. There are new tests. There's IDEX has a real PCR that can mark really what type of infection they think your cat has, so abortive, regressive, or progressive, and that's huge to be able to know the status of your cat's virus. So definitely consider adopting these kiddos. If you have more questions, you're always welcome to ask, and just come on in, meet these special kiddos. We've generally got a couple FIV or FeLV positive cats up for adoption at any given time, and they're just as deserving as any other cat that we have. So come meet them, see if they might be a good fit for you, especially if you are looking to have just one cat. This is a great match. We'd always like to start you off looking at these kiddos because they are really special and they do need special homes. So with all of that being said, I hope you guys have learned a little bit today about FIV and FeLV. I don't want you to be scared of either of these viruses. These are normal cats that can live normal lives, and they're loving and they're playful and they want to be in a home just as much as every other cat does. And they're usually healthier in a home than they can be in a shelter because there's a lot less stress. So I hope you've learned a lot today. Please let us know if you have any questions. You can drop them in the comments here on Facebook, or you can shoot us an email anytime at catfoster@hstc1.org. You can head to our website to see our adoptable pets, and I hope that you have enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in.